Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling what is often viewed as a pretty daunting, yet absolutely essential task, and that's implementing the NIST cybersecurity framework, or the CSF. Now, as you might remember from our earlier discussions, compliance is just a massive concept in the security world. Simply put, compliance is the process of sticking to your internal standards and any external regulations. It's basically the ultimate way of measuring just how well your organization is protecting its precious assets. And that is exactly where the NIST CSF comes in as a total powerhouse tool to help you get there.
So ask yourself this, is your business truly secure? And how do you actually measure that protection? You know, it's one thing to go out and buy some fancy antivirus software, but it's an entirely different thing to prove that your whole organization can withstand, respond to, and fully recover from a coordinated cyber attack. That is exactly why compliance isn't just bureaucratic paperwork. It is the tangible, measurable proof that your assets are protected.
Okay, let's clear up a couple of definitions right out of the gate, because we hear these terms thrown around all the time. Regulations are mandatory rules that you absolutely must follow. Think of them as the law. Frameworks, on the other hand, those are voluntary resources you can choose to use. The NIST CSF is a voluntary framework made up of standards, guidelines, and best practices. Organizations choose to use the CSF to build up a really robust security posture, which in turn is what helps them achieve compliance with those mandatory regulations.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Demystifying the NIST CSF. 2. Understanding framework structure. 3. The 7-step implementation guide. And 4. Putting CSF into practice.
Section 1. Demystifying the NIST CSF. Flexibility over frustration.
All right, let's just address the elephant in the room right now. Since its creation, thousands of businesses have used this framework, but it is notoriously famous for causing a bit of frustration. I mean, it's right up there with surprise audits. The sheer level of detail makes it a challenge to implement, and frankly, it can be tough to figure out exactly where it fits into what you're already doing. But here's the crucial takeaway. The CSF is incredibly flexible. It complements, but does not replace your existing risk management program. If you already have established security plans, it gives you a nationally recognized language to communicate your posture. Or, if you're in the early stages of building a plan and just need a place to start, it acts as the perfect foundational blueprint. It completely molds to your needs.
Section 2. Understanding framework structure, core, profiles, and tiers.
To make sense of this massive framework, it really helps to break it down into 3 accessible pieces that actually work together systematically. You've got the framework core, which feeds directly into the framework profile, which is then measured across different implementation tiers. They aren't separate, isolated ideas. The core gives you the activities, the profile aligns those activities to your specific business needs, and the tiers measure the sophistication of your processes. Let's briefly break each one down.
It all starts with the framework core. This is organized into 5 continuous high-level functions. Identify, which is understanding your assets and risks. Protect, putting your safeguards in place. Detect, identifying when a cybersecurity event actually happens. Respond, taking action when an incident occurs. And finally, recover, restoring any impaired capabilities. When you step back and look at them together, these 5 functions provide a complete, high-level strategic view of the entire life cycle of cybersecurity risk management.
Next up, we have the framework tiers. These range from Tier 1, which is considered partial and mostly reactive, all the way up to Tier 4, adaptive, where your organization is proactively predicting and adapting to new threats. Now, here's a really important caveat. Tiers are not just some rigid maturity model where everyone is forced to reach Tier 4. Moving up to a higher tier should always be based on a careful cost-benefit analysis. You only move up if it's a feasible, cost-effective way to reduce your specific risks.
And the third piece of the puzzle is the framework profile. Honestly, this is where the real magic happens. A profile takes those core functions we just talked about and aligns them with your specific business requirements and risk tolerance. You basically use this to create 2 things: a current profile, which is an honest documentation of what you are doing right now, and a target profile, which details exactly what you want to achieve in the future. By comparing the 2, you establish a customized, totally unique roadmap for reducing your cybersecurity risk.
Section 3. The 7-step implementation guide, your actionable roadmap.
So, how do we actually implement all of this without completely getting lost in the weeds? Well, this 7-step workflow is your practical solution. It is absolutely not a one-and-done checklist. It is a continuous cycle of prioritizing, assessing, targeting, and implementing. Let's walk through what these phases actually look like in the real world.
Phases 1 through 3 are basically your reality check. They are all about understanding where you are starting from. In Step 1, prioritize and scope, you identify your primary business objectives and figure out which parts of the organization will use the framework. Step 2, orient, is where you identify your specific critical systems, assets, and any regulatory requirements. And then in Step 3, you create that current profile. You map your existing day-to-day cybersecurity practices to the framework to see exactly what your current as-is posture looks like.
That brings us right into phases 4 through 7, where we shift gears into action. Step 4 involves conducting a thorough risk assessment to find your specific vulnerabilities. In Step 5, you dream a little. You create your target profile, your ideal future state. Step 6 is the critical pivot. This is where you analyze the gaps between your current and target profiles to figure out exactly what is missing, and you prioritize those gaps based on the resources you have. Finally, in Step 7, you implement your action plan to actually close those gaps.
Section 4. Putting CSF into practice. The case of Organization A.
Theories and roadmaps are great, right? But seeing it in action is where these concepts really click. Let's introduce the hero of our journey today, Organization A. They are a regional commercial facility with about 300 employees. Because of the industry they're in, they are heavily regulated by federal and state laws. But their internal security was mostly just ad hoc. They were really only loosely aligned with the NIST CSF initially, so they had a pretty big problem. They desperately needed to upgrade their reactive security into a structured, repeatable plan that could actually prove their compliance. So they decided to follow the 7 steps.
Let's zoom right into Step 6 for them, analyzing the gaps. Take remote access controls, for example, specifically a framework subcategory known as PR.AC-3. Organization A's current profile showed they basically just used a VPN, logged user activity, and disabled accounts when people quit. Not bad, but based on their risk assessment, their target profile required much tighter security. Specifically, they needed to add a supervisor signature requirement for VPN access, plus a biannual review of the access list. The gap analysis clearly laid out exactly what was missing, giving them a highly specific, totally actionable priority.
And here is the ultimate payoff. By formally identifying those gaps and executing their action plan, Organization A didn't just fix a simple VPN issue. They transformed their entire cybersecurity culture. They moved from a Tier 1 or Tier 2 ad hoc approach all the way up to a Tier 3 repeatable risk management posture. Their security became formalized, approved by management, and integrated across the whole organization. And that right there is how you use a framework to turn a theoretical goal into measurable compliance and real asset protection.
I want to read you this powerful quote straight from the source material. The framework provides a common mechanism for organizations to identify and prioritize opportunities for improvement within the context of a continuous and repeatable process. I love that because it beautifully captures the real essence of the NIST CSF. Cybersecurity is literally never done. The threat landscape evolves every single day, which means your defense has to be an ongoing, living cycle of continuous improvement.
So whatever you do, please don't let the sheer volume of this framework intimidate you. It's built to be flexible, and it's specifically designed to be taken one step at a time. I want to leave you with this question to chew on. What is the very first step you will take today to map out your organization's cybersecurity future? Are you going to scope out your assets, or maybe start sketching out your current profile? Whatever it is, take that step today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.